everybody, my name is Mr. Francy and welcome back to Mr. Francy Reads. Today we are fully set in gear to run through favorites and non-favorites of the year. I am so happy we are beginning, and today's video is favorites by genre. So some of you may just be a little bit confused as to what favorites by genre is, and I'm more than happy to explain that to you. Favorites by genre, today's video is all about telling you what my favorite book was for every single genre I read. Now, some readers out there like to just read from one particular genre, or maybe just one, two, or three. I read from many different genres. Now, this year, one genre has taken up the majority of the books that I've read. That is absolutely true. But that is not to say that I didn't read from other genres, because I did. So first of all, let's look at some stats, because I love my stats. I hope you do too. So let's put them up on the screen. These stats that you're about to see will contain the number of books that I read in each genre for the last 12 months. So to be clear, these are the stats from December of 2021 through to and including the end of November in 2022. Alright, let's put the stats up on the screen. For the last 12 months, I have, that is so hard to say for some reason, but I have read, my word, let's look right at the top. 64 cozy mysteries in 12 months. To think that entering into December, December of 2021, I had probably only read 3. And in the last 12 months, I've read 64. It is safe to say that I am a well-read, or getting better to become a more well-read, cozy mystery reader than I was this time last year. And I'm very thankful for all your suggestions. Thank you. Coming in at second place was fantasy. I was surprised that I had read as many fantasies as I had, but then when I looked back at to how I got to this number, it made sense. But it's much lower than cozies. I read 13 fantasies in the last 12 months. Usually I read more than 50, but this year, that award went to cozies. Coming in at third place was classics. I read 11 classics in the past 12 months, which is fantastic because I nearly reached my goal. I had a goal to read 12 classics in 2022, and so I think in 2022 I probably read 10. Remember, this includes December last year. But that's a whole lot more than I thought I did, so I'm really happy about that. Coming into fourth place is dystopians, and this is where I have read minimal books from the remaining genres. I read 4 dystopians in the last 12 months, which is a lot better than the 12 months before where I only read 1. So let's hope that I read more dystopians in 2023. With romance, that comes in next. I read 3 romances in the last 12 months. Now, a romance, defined by myself on this channel, is any sort of a romance book that is male-female, involving a man and a woman. That is because we now have my next category, which is LGBTIQ+. LGBTIQ+ covers any sort of book where the main theme has something to do with the LGBTIQ+ community. And in the past 12 months, disappointingly for me, I read 3 books. So hoping to read more LGBTIQ+ in 2023. Next up is thrillers. And, well, again, a disappointment here. I only read 2 thrillers in the last 12 months. Next up is non-fiction. I read 2 non-fiction books as well. Next up, we have contemporaries. I only read 1 contemporary in the past 12 months. That is not like me. I love my contemporaries, especially hard-hitting YA contemporaries. If you have a hard-hitting YA contemporary that I haven't read and you know it's a good one, let me know in the comments below, because I want to read more hard-hitting contemporaries next year. Alright, next up, sci-fi. I also only read 1 sci-fi. There you go. It's not that I don't like sci-fis. I only just read 1. Next up, mysteries. I only read the 1. Yeah, so normally I read more thrillers, but this year a total of mysteries and thrillers is 3, if you don't include the cozies, so, but only 1 mystery. And the final category is horror. I only read 1 horror this year, which is really surprising. I have to go back and look at my October monthly wrap, because usually in October I read a whole lot of horrors and a whole lot of thrillers, so I don't know what happened in October of this year, but guess that did not happen. Alright, so now we're going to jump in reverse order, so reverse from the order what I've shown you, and show you my favourite books from that genre. Now, if I only read 1 book from that genre, then that book will automatically win by default, but I will let you know very early on if I consider it a favourite book of mine or not. Alright, let's begin. Alright, so we're going to start off with the books that I've only read 1 from each of these genres. So I'll tell you what it is, tell you if it actually is a favourite, or if it is a favourite by default. Okay, so first up, first cap off the rank is horror. I only read 1 horror this year, and it was this book, The Housemates by Ian Robb Wright. Let's put it up on the screen. It's just a lot easier to see that way. And yes, by far and away, this deserves my favourite horror award for the year, because it was so good. Okay. Very quick premise. We follow a man by the name of, I don't even remember, Damien. We follow a name by the name of Damien who enters into a competition that is kind of like the TV series Big Brother, the reality show, meets Saw, where 12 housemates enter into a house, all vying to win the grand prize and be the last one left remaining. But the Saw twist does come in when it comes to the eliminations. There are rather horrific ways that those who are evicted become evicted. Okay, so I won't say more than that because the rest would be a spoiler. This is actually book number 4 in the Damien Verse series, and I plan to read the Damien Verse, the rest of them, books 1, 2, and 3, in 2023. But I loved this one. If you like horrors that are actual horrors, not like those fake ones that say they're horrors and then you get bored reading them, this is the one you should pick up. Really horrific moments. So if you're not a fan of horror, don't pick it up, but if you are, highly recommend. Alright, on to mysteries. The one mystery book that I read this year was this book, The Inheritance Games, and this is by, is it Jennifer? Yes, Jennifer Lynn Barnes. It's hard to see the name at the bottom there. Alright, let's put that up on the screen. Okay, very quickly. The reason why I read this book is all because of this book. So I picked up this book purely based on the title, did not read the premise, was very excited to read a book called The Inheritance Games, and my imagination ran wild. I thought, oh, we're gonna read a book about all these kids. It's a YA, so I assumed these teenagers who are gonna take place in this, like, game competition type thing, and the winner gets to win an inheritance, and how fun will this be? That is not what it was about at all. The first chapter, the inheritee, whatever you call that person, the benefactor, or whatever they're called. Yeah, anyway, inherited already in chapter 1. So, yeah, that was that theory out the window. And the rest of the time, we're kind of like trying to figure out some kind of secrets to do with the mansion that they inherit, as well as the family who is not their own family. So that's a surprise twist that occurs in chapter 1. So it's not a spoiler. This person who inherits the money is not someone who even knows the family of the guy that died, but yeah, it wasn't the book for me. So I was looking for a competition that would be rather thrilling. That's why I picked up Housemates. So The Inheritance Games wins as my favourite mystery for the year only by default. Had I read another mystery, it would have probably won over this one. I did not enjoy it. Alright, for sci-fi, I only read 1 sci-fi this year, and that was this gorgeous cover, Cytonic, by Brandon Sanderson. Let's put it up on the screen. This is book number 3 in the Skyward series, a sci-fi series by Brandon Sanderson, YA series. I love the series, did not like this book. So again, this one wins purely by default because I only read 1 sci-fi this year, but hoping to read more next year. There's not a lot I can say about this one because it's book 3 in the series. I would spoil way too much with any sort of a premise, so we'll just move on. The final book in my only 1 book from that genre category, that one, is my one contemporary that I read in the last 12 months, and this is going to make it even worse, y'all. I read this book in December of 2021, so I have not picked up a contemporary in what will nearly be a whole year, which is kind of sad. But the last contemporary I picked up was this book, The Chance to Fly. Let's put it up on the screen. This is by Ali Stroker and Stacey Davidowitz. I did really love this book. I gave it 5 stars. So in this one, we follow a girl by the name of Nat who is in a wheelchair. Nat is a middle grade, so it's a middle grade book, middle grade child in a wheelchair. She loves musicals more than life itself. She ends up going to a new school, applies to be a part of the musical, and things kind of happen from there. I loved everything about this book. I love that we have wheelchair representation, and that's why I picked it up. But what I loved even more was just how much passion Nat has for musicals, because I share the same amount of passion she does. I love to the umpteenth degree musicals. So I just really enjoyed this book for the disability representation as well as the disability awareness, because a lot of the people that she meets at this school that become her friends have never known anyone in a wheelchair, so they got to learn more about, you know, things that wheelchair people require and stuff like that. Limitations, but also non-limitations. Sometimes people have expectations because someone's in a wheelchair, so there are certain things that people think they can't do, and that also proves the point that they can do certain things. Ali Stroker wrote this book, and this book is own voices. Ali Stroker's in a wheelchair, so I appreciated that as well. Let's move on. Alright, for the next 3, I don't own a copy of any of them, which is kind of sad, considering that if I love a book, I do purchase it, but I guess something happened along the way and just didn't end up happening. So next up, I'm going to talk about non-fictions. I read 2 non-fictions in the past 12 months. I did love both of them, so it's hard for me to choose a winner. Oh, dash it all, it's my channel and I'm going to give them both the winning prize. They can split it in half and share it. Okay, the first one is Becoming by Michelle Obama. This was a fantastic book. I read this in January to start off my year this year, and I truly enjoyed it. Look, views do seem to be divided over whether or not to pick up the book, because for some American readers, it's hard to pick up because it's political and very close to home. But for myself, I'm far enough removed, and I had an interest in reading it. I enjoyed Barack Obama's reign from Australia as much as I could, and I really loved getting to know Michelle Obama from what I could see, so I wanted to learn more, picked up her book, her memoir, and I absolutely loved it. I do highly recommend this book. It is so fantastic. I am extremely transparent. What you see is what you get from me. If I find a book to be boring, horrible, terrible, in my own opinion, I'll tell you it's my own opinion, and then I'll tell you why it was terrible. So if I say that I highly recommend a book, that is because I found that book to be absolutely fantastic. And I did with this one. The story of Michelle's life growing up, Michelle meeting Barack, and just everything that eventuated from when Barack became president and moving forward, as well as all the life lessons I learned from this book. It was fantastic. I highly recommend it. The other nonfiction I read that shares the award with this one is this book, Unbreakable, by Yelena, that is Jelena, Yelena Dokic. So Yelena Dokic is a former Australian tennis player who was marred in a lot of controversy. She was a successful player when she was younger and first came on the tour at the age of 15, 16, something like that. She, as a wild card at Wimbledon, defeated the world number 1 at the time, Martina Hingis, in the first round of Wimbledon and rose to stardom. After a couple of years, Yelena Dokic was taken out of Australia and she represented Yugoslavia, which is where she was originally born. And so there was controversy there. And then she ended up coming back to Australia and discussing something rather publicly that I kind of figured all along because of how closely I followed Yelena. I felt like there was more going on behind the scenes, and it turns out it was true. Yelena was being controlled by her absolutely controlling father. I do recommend this book as a good look at what goes on behind the scenes. The WTA Tour, the Women's Tennis Association, are now doing what they can, the Players' Council, to really dig deep and investigate what's going on with players that they might suspect may be suffering from some form of abuse with coaches or parents or anything like that, which I appreciate. But back in the days of Yelena playing tennis, that did not happen. And it was a struggle at times to read. So I do warn you, if anyone is triggered by anything like this, please know that it is a very triggering book, but I appreciated that Yelena released this book to go into a little more depth and detail as to what was going on behind the curtain. I loved both non-fiction books. They both deserve the award. So the next category is thrillers. And I read 2 thrillers this year. One of them I did not like at all, so I won't name what it is. Just look in my Goodreads. You'll be able to find it. Wasn't a fan. But the other one I absolutely loved after initially DNFing it. And that is this book, Confessions by Kanai Minato. I don't know why I never purchased this book, but it was fantastic. So in this one, we follow a teacher. I don't remember her name. She's like a middle grade teacher. And right at the beginning of the book, the very first page, she's sitting down talking to her students because she's going to retire that day. So she's got her last 10 minutes of her day before she retires, and she's passing on some pearls of wisdom to the students in her class. And then she starts telling a sad story about how her 3 or 4-year-old daughter was murdered. And then the first chapter ends with the teacher saying, "And I know full well that the 2 murderers of my child is sitting here in this very room." Well, that intrigued me to read more. Now, the second chapter I did not enjoy as much. It led me to DNF the book. But then I decided to give the book a second chance. And boy, am I glad I did. This is a book that has very few chapters, but they're extremely long. I think there's like 6 chapters. And each chapter follows the perspective of someone who had something to do with the murder. The final reveal at the end of the book blew my mind. I highly recommend it. It is available as a physical book as well as an audio book, so you can go down both routes for this one. And oh my gosh, so good. I cannot highly enough recommend. All right. Let's keep going. I want to keep the video as short as I possibly can. The next category is romance. That is straight romance. And, sorry, no, it's not. The next category, is LGBTIQ+. So this is any sort of a book where the dominating theme has anything to do with the, lesbian, gay, bi, trans, intersex, queer, and all the other letters community. I read 3 books in this category, which I hope to read more next year. And my favorite, with just by a little bit, because I loved all of them, but just by a little bit, would have to go to this book, which is How to Vex a Vampire. It's not on my SAS list for next year, or at least I don't think it is, and it probably should be. I really enjoyed this first book in the series. Oh, that's right. Because the next book in the series follows completely different characters, and that annoys me about romances, certain romances, so that's why. I don't remember the characters' names, but all I can say is the guy that you see here on the cover is a human. In this particular world, there is a human police force that he is a part of, and there's also a vampire police force. The human police force having humans, and the vampire police force having vampires. This human wants to join the vampire police force, so he does. This human also so happens to be gay and ends up developing a crush on the partner that he ends up being assigned to in the vampire police force. This was so fantastic. I highly recommend if you love fantasy, if you love vampire books, if you love male romance books, if you love steamy books. It has it all. I cannot recommend it highly enough. On to romance. Okay, so for straight romances, male-female romances, I read 3 this year, or in the last 12 months, and my favourite was this book, which is Dashing Through the Snow by Debbie Maycomber. Let's put it up on the screen, sorry about the glare. Okay, so in this one we follow, I don't remember the woman's name, Ashley. We follow Ashley and Dash. Ashley is trying to catch a plane to go somewhere. I read this last December, so forgive me for not remembering it all, but she's trying to catch a plane to go be with her family or something, I think. And for whatever reason, the flight gets cancelled. There's no way for her to get there. So she decides to go and rent a car and drive interstate to go and be with her family. And there's another guy in that same line for the rent-a-car. His name is Dash. There's only one car available, and they're both saying, I should have it for this reason. No, I should have it for this reason. And then ultimately, they both decide they will pay half each and drive together. And then the one who has to travel further will pick up the other one on the way back through. So they are driving together towards wherever it is they need to go. Very much reminded me of kind of like a When Harry Met Sally type deal, but I truly enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Next up, we have dystopians. And I read 4 dystopians in the past 12 months, a major improvement from the 12 months previous, and hoping to read more next year. But my favorite dystopian of all the ones I read in the past 12 months is this one, Legend, by Marie Lu. This is book number 1 in the something or other series, the Legend series. I think it's actually called the Legend series. Anyway, let's put it up on the screen. So in this one, we follow 2 different people, and I wish I was more prepared than this because I've forgotten their names. Day and June. Okay. We follow Day and June in this incredibly dystopian world. One of my favorite things about dystopians as a whole, as a genre, is that the reader heavily relies on the world building to make each book and each series, because in a dystopian world, in case you don't know, it is the exact opposite to a utopia where everything is perfect. In a dystopian world, everything is miserable, and it's miserable for a reason. And the more we read in a book or a series, the more we begin to peel back all the layers and find out exactly what's going on. And that's one of the things I find so fascinating about dystopians. Now, in this book, it is the first book in this Legend series, and it just blew me away. As I say, we follow Day and June in this dystopian world where children, when they are very young, I think like 9 years of age or maybe younger, end up taking this test, this academic test that will set them up for the rest of their lives. Depending upon the score that they receive is depending upon how they're going to do for the rest of their lives. Why? Well, if you score below a certain line, you will not be allowed to go to school anymore. That's it. You're done. Good luck to you and the rest of your life. Try and find a job. Let's hope you survive. Hence, dystopian. If you go above the line, yeah, we'll give you scholarships, we'll allow you to go to schools, and that's wonderful. If you exceed expectations, we'll give you scholarships to the best schools, and then you'll automatically also get the best jobs. So while bright students in our world may get to go to the best schools, they don't necessarily have the guarantee that they're going to get the best jobs. But in this world, you do get that guarantee. You're not only going to go to the best schools, but you're assured to get the best jobs. One of the greatest things about this dual perspective with Day and June is that Day received the lowest score ever recorded in history in the particular year when he took it. And in that same year that he took it, June took the test as well. And June scored the highest score in history. So we get to see both mini worlds and both perspectives in this really tough environment. And it was just so fantastic. I highly recommend, if you love dystopians, highly recommend the Legend series, starting off with book 1. Alright, now on to classics. I read 11 classics in the past 12 months, so almost one a month, which is pretty awesome. And again, I need to split the prize with 2 books. So, the first one is A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Let's put that up on the screen. So yeah, adult classic. This is a book about a girl named Sarah who ends up, she lives with her father, who is a widower. His wife has passed away and he is going off to war. So he takes Sarah to this orphanage type school for while he's away at war. Sarah is a very positive person. I love this about her. Anything and everything she can turn into a positive. She loves her father, loves her life, and now everything is turned upside down for her because at this school that she's taken to, it is a very cold a cold soul type of school, if that makes sense. The teachers are incredibly strict. The school seems very colorless and very kind of lifeless. The students are incredibly mean, and yet something ends up happening that is very incredibly unfortunate to Sarah about somewhere between the quarter and halfway mark of the book that really turns things around, not only for Sarah, but for the school as a good thing. I don't want to spoil anything, but I highly recommend, and I know that Sarah from the Bookish Knitter loves this book as well, so I highly recommend. The second book, the one that shares the prize for classics, would have to be this one. Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. Put it up on the screen. Okay. I have not stopped thinking about this book since I've read it, so it deserves many awards, but I have also not been able to stop thinking about A Little Princess. In this one, we follow 10 different characters who are given an opportunity to go and stay in a mansion, in a hotel on this lonely island. So they all take the opportunity. In every one of the bedrooms where each of the 10 guests are staying is a poem called 10 Little Indians that details in every line of the poem the different ways that each of the 10 little Indians die. We realize very early on, so this is in fact not a spoiler as much as it may sound like one, that all of the 10 characters in this book are also going to die in those same ways, but we don't know who, and we don't know in what order. We also don't know why. This was incredibly exciting despite the fact that I knew how they would die. I still didn't know who, didn't know when, and then when we got to the reveal at the end, oh my gosh, it was so well done. Oh my goodness. I loved the book anyway, and then when we got to the reveal, I was like, oh yeah, we needed a reveal. And so that's how much I loved the book anyway. And then the reveal was so good anyway. Oh my gosh, deserves to share the award with A Little Princess. Alright, 2 more genres left. Here we are, fantasy. I read 19 fantasies this year, and my favourite of all 19 fantasies is this book, which is The Shifting Sands by Emily Rodda. Put it up on the screen. And this is book number 4 in the Del Toro Quest series. So, the premise of this series is that we follow a prince by the name of Leaf. Shorthand version, he is given a belt during a coronation in book 1. The belt is meant to have gemstones on it that was forged by the magical creatures of the land. The gemstones are missing, so every single following book, we are going out with Leaf and Barda, and they meet a girl by the name of Jasmine, and together they try and find a gem in every subsequent book. In this particular one, I gave it 5 stars because the beginning of this particular novella, all of them are novellas, the 3 of them enter into a competition that could help them to win a lot of money, that will help them on their journey to uncover the gems. So I loved that. And of course, I also loved at the end when we're going to recover the gem, like in every other novella in the series, there is a roadblock to getting the gem, and I always find that roadblock to be fun. I highly recommend the series, particularly book number 4. And finally, Cozy Mysteries, the Pista or Feaster, however you say it, Resistance, 64 books in 12 months. My word, I went cozy deep this year, or these past 12 months. Alright, I need to give a shout out to a novella. I can't give the award to it because it's a novella cozy, but it has to have a shout out. So, let's put it up on the screen. Candy Cane Crime by Amanda Flower. This book should receive the award. It really should. It was the best cozy that I've read, but it's a cozy novella. We follow Charlotte, who is the cousin of the protagonist of this series, who has a secret admirer, and basically throughout the course of the entire novella, we're trying to find out who the secret admirer is. It was extremely cozy, extremely beautiful. I loved it so much, and you know what? Dash it all. The award for my favourite cozy novella of the year goes to Candy Cane Crime, because I just loved it so much. So there you go. But my award for my best cozy. Some of you probably been wondering, Mr. Francy, you read so many, 64, how can you choose? It was an impossible task. It was. But I had a first instinct. And in the end, I've decided to go with that first instinct. Because this book has stayed with me from the moment I first read it. Do you know which one it is? Let's see if you're right. I have to go with this. It has stuck with me this whole time. Assaulted Caramel by Amanda Flower, which is book up there. Book number 1 in the Amish Candy Shop series, which is the first book in the series of which the novella Candy Cane Crime is a part of. I have to. This series, I had heard so much on the back half of 2021 about this series that by the time I got onto reading this book in 2022, I was so nervous. And all I could think was, please just let me like the book. I don't have to love the book. Just let me like the book. I finished this book and I loved it, and I needed number 2 so much that I read number 2 literally as the next book I read. It was so good. Oh my gosh, Amanda Flower. Praise to Amanda Flower. She has become my favorite female author of 2022. Oh, I probably shouldn't say that because I have a favorite authors video coming up. But anyway, it deserves it. Okay, very quick premise. We follow Bailey King, who is well-renowned chocolatier in New York. She moves back home to Amish country in Harvest, Ohio, to assist her grandmother and grandfather in their candy company, Swissman Sweets, because her grandfather is deathly ill. On the first night she arrives there, she can't sleep. She goes downstairs. Her grandparents live up above the candy store to see a man who is dead, who has a knife sticking out of his back, which is the knife that Bailey used earlier that day to chop up some candy. So Bailey becomes a prime suspect. And also, on top of that, there's no way the store can continue to remain open until the mystery is solved. So Bailey has every motivation and goes out with her best friend, to try and solve this murder. I love this book. I love the series, and the book has stuck with me throughout the entire year, so it deserved the medal for my favorite cozy mystery for the last 12 months. But that is it. Those are my favorite books by genre for the past 12 months. What are your favorite books by genre? Let me know in the comment section below. But in the meantime, that is where I am going to leave it. A whole lot more favorites and non-favorites coming your way this week. But until then, please do be kind and love one another and spread your sparkling energy all throughout the world. And until next time, Merry Christmas, y'all, and happy reading. Bye, everyone.